Yeah, check it.
Good evening, everyone from RRT. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first three oil seminars that we're hosting with Motul. I wanted to kick this off this evening. I'm going to turn it over to our race lead, Kelsey Hill, who's helping us put all this together. Then we're going to have, I believe, somebody from the club come in, and after that, we're going to go into a technical presentation with Motul. So with that, Kelsey, you want to roll in? Is she not? Seven. Oh, that's not good. She's frozen. Hey, Gordon, maybe have somebody from the club welcome everyone.
Yeah, Paul. Well,
So Paul will not be able to make it tonight. So we're looking for one of the.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. Welcome, everybody. And this is the first of three-part series on fluids. And we have the Motul guys on board from California for any technical questions. I want to thank Kelsey Hill, who's the MC this evening. She put these program together. I also want to thank Paul Cito, our longtime president, for being there forever for us. RRT, Matt also, you've been there for us many years, and thank you for hosting this. RRT is one of the best shops in the area for any kind of BMW repair work or any kind of help you need, both for the track or for regular maintenance. But they've been around for a long time, and they've been tested, and they're a great shop. I want to thank Todd Bascato for being our technical guy out there and with the camera. And I think we're all set.
I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody. I will be driving for this, and I want to give a quick thank you also to our friends at Motul. Thanks to RRT and Motul, I have a very joyful experience of doing different fluids in our race cars, as well as our commercial and everyday cars as well. So I wanted to kind of give a little background, a little hello to everybody. And where this kind of came from, a little background is we've been doing racing, from everything from sprint to endurance. And with our team in particular, we have been doing both American endurance racing and WRL together. And so both of those groups, what was fun is we would run side by side, E36s, pretty much everything the same. But the big difference was one of our cars was running one product, another was running different products for fluids. And we kind of got to test in real life scenario what products work best for our application, and also based on what RRT was seeing in usage and fluid analysis. So it's kind of where some of the ideas behind this came from, was how can we, tap into technical relationships that RRT has and how RRT supports NCZ, and kind of provide this information out to all of you and everybody else as you're making decisions for your vehicles, from street use to kind of mixed use to full-time performance use. So it's a little bit of background. On the Motul side, we have some of our great friends from now. Let them introduce themselves when we get to their area. But the combination of this is going to be technical on the front end, and then RRT is going to kind of bring it all home in the back end and talk about application. And then we're going to have questions and answers. Our goal is to keep this to an hour, so please bear with us as we go through the different parts. If you can either hold your questions till the end or throw them in the chat, I'll make a big compiled list and we'll get to those in the Q&A as well. So without further ado, I will turn this over to the gentleman over at Motul to introduce themselves, and then we will kick this off with a presentation and get going. Nico, can you?
Oh,
yeah,
just
you're up.
Kelsey. Yes, I thought you were going to project the.
I am. I'm working on it. Sorry, we're getting there.
I was kind of expecting that.
Oh, sorry. Just throwing you for a surprise here. Okay.
It's okay. While we're at it, thank you very much, everyone, for your presence. Thank you, RRT and the BMW CCA, for providing us with this chance to speak a little bit about lubricants and see what kind of solutions we have for your BMW needs. With me here is Chris Yakis. Together we provide technical support, application support, and our specific needs for all sorts of customers, whether specialized folks such as yourselves, professionals in the trade industry, and also some racing squads that we support either here or from the partnerships we have for headquarters. All right, so if I'm not mistaken, yes, there we have it, presentation. Okay. Well, first of all, we wanted to make a brief introduction about the Motul brand for folks out there that don't know about us. First and foremost, it may seem crazy, but it's one of the oldest standing brands in the world. It started out in 1853, and then in the 1950s, it became a French-owned company. We are still a family-owned company, independent. We focus on blending lubricants and other maintenance chemistry. We don't have any relationship with the fuel world. So all we do, all we think about is lubrication and maintenance solution. Just to keep this thing short, sometimes people ask us, hey, what's special about Motul? What did you guys did along your career that it's so special? And we do have some technical milestones that I could mention. So on the left there, you can see that we were the first ones to trade a multi-grade lubricant in the market for regular automotive applications. That was always condensed in aero and some defense applications. We were the first ones out there in 1966 to commercialize a semi-synthetic lubricant for cars. And one of the things that we take most proud of is being the first company to develop a 100% synthetic ester-based lubricant for normal car and motorcycle applications back in 1971. That was the birth of 300V, because back then we had 300 victories with the Motul supported teams. And ever since then, everything that has to do with racing and engine oils for Motul, it's 300V. 300V evolved along the years. When in 2011, we came up with the concept of the ester core technology, working along with those esters that were always the backbone of our racing oils, but introducing other chemistry to make it last longer, to make it more efficient, And last year, actually late 2021, we made the latest iteration on the 300V Motorsports line, which is the one that you will see in the future slides with a sort of like a carbon fiber look. So that's a little bit about the Motul history. The brand has been in the United States since 1985 approximately. It became a Motul business unit in the early 90s. And ever since then, we've had a footprint in the California region, trying to cater to all of the Americas, mostly the United States and Canada. Well, going past the history side of things and getting into business, obviously, we don't intend for making this either a physics or a chemistry class. We want to keep it short, simple, but we're looking forward for your questions. So no matter how complicated or how simple the question might be, shoot it over the chat and we'll be glad to reply to you. When discussing lubricants, one of the things we like to mention, it's always, yes, it may seem pretty obvious to everyone that we need lubricants in moving contacts to avoid wear, to avoid friction, and hopefully make things last longer. But it's also very important to understand that lubricants are fundamental for efficiency. Yes, and efficiency for a regular customer might be mileage, the faster and the longer you can go. But in racing, efficiency means more horsepower, more torque. So everything about the lubricant, especially in the latest times where everything has to be more efficient because of CAFE ratings and whatnot, it's about efficiency. Every single component, the additives, the base oils, they're all targeting that. If we move forward to the next slide, thank you very much, Kelsey. We will see a little briefing of the different functions that an engine oil needs to do inside the engine, and some of them are becoming more and more important in the latest years. As you can see there, first and foremost, reducing friction, minimizing mechanical losses and wear, providing a film that's stable, that's consistent all across the board, no matter the load state of the engine. Mechanical losses are super important for us. This is how we make money with racing. Approximately 30% of what you folks put as fuel inside your car goes to waste in friction. And that 30% of losses in friction is divided in the many different components that you can see there on our engine, especially the valve train, the piston cylinder interface, and the crankshaft. So the additives that we use inside the oil, the base oils that we use for certain applications, they're all targeting reducing that friction across those different components. It's obvious for all of us that by lubricating, by providing a stable film, we provide engine noise mitigation. We can't have parts slapping against each other with no control, especially in high revving engines. Also very important for engine performance is the hydraulic seal function that the oil provides on the combustion chamber. And when we think about a 0W12 engine oil, that is very, very important, because although the film is going to be extremely thin, we're going to be lubricating with a substance very close to water's viscosity at high temperature. We still need to keep that combustion chambers nice and sealed so that we don't lose any compression and hence we don't lose any power. Lubricants nowadays are very important in the operating temperatures of the engine. There is a very, very strong collaboration of the engine oil and the cooling system to keep the engine under control in terms of temperature. So oils need to withstand more temperature and need to provide that level of protection for longer time as oil change intervals grow bigger and bigger. And when it comes to detergency and its effects, you can see there that the lubricant has to provide a cleaning effect inside the engine, needs to avoid every single residue from the combustion chamber to get stick to the components, has to disperse those debris and send them over to the filter for isolation. We need to provide acid neutralization, and this is very, very important when it comes to biofuels and when it comes to diesel vehicles. And obviously, we need to minimize corrosion happening because of those acids. And that is also very important when it comes to a 10,000-mile or longer oil change interval. And last but not least, you can see there the hydraulic functions that the oil needs to make happen inside the engine. The obvious one would be hydraulic lifters, variable valve timing devices such as Vanas, and other hydraulic commands that we see in different types of engines, like oil pressure controlled injectors in some heavy duty engines and whatnot. So what seems like, okay, oil is oil, every oil is the same. It's actually very complex, and it gets harder and harder when we start looking at OEM approved lubricants, like BMW approved lubricants, because every engine is different. Every OEM deals with their fluids in a different manner. So we need to cater to each and every one of them if we want to stay on that high quality level that the formally approved oils need to have. So I wanted to start with this because this is the kickstart to understanding those approvals that we're going to see in a couple slides ahead. As an introduction, you can see here that when we talk about liquid lubricants, pretty much all of them will have similar ratios. Between 70 to 95%, it's base oils. That's the reason why they're called base oils. These are the foundations of the finished lubricants. And then 5 to 30%, depending on the type of lubricant, is going to be represented by the additives. As a rule of thumb, one can always say that simple hydraulics, as you would have in a hydraulic press or anything of that sort, don't carry that much additives. It's pretty much 95% base oil. But when it comes to more complex fluids, like certain engine oils, power sports engine oils, transmission fluids, then the additives weight in the formulation becomes bigger or higher and higher. The more complex the functions, the more additives we need to add, we need to put into play for giving the oil certain specific characteristics, avoiding the oil to degrade, make the oil flow better, etc., etc. This is a brief overview of what you can see in our line and how we represent the different base oils and how we convey to the customer what application those oils have. So from left to right, you see the level of quality going up from the mineral products, which we barely carry in the States. There's hardly any demand for us in that market. But you can see the technosynthese line, which is a specific blending of mineral and synthetic oils, or sometimes of only synthetic oils. And you have your fully synthetics there, the 8100 products, which, depending on the naming, you can see there an example from the XS. We tell the customer what approvals these products meet. And obviously, as you can see there on that 8100 XS, the higher we go in terms of quality, the more approvals the products carry. So the more multi-brand approved those oils become. Sometimes we cannot mix that many different profiles, but it's okay, Kelsey. That was the right picture. Thank you very much. We're very synced on timing. Sometimes we cannot mix certain applications, or we have a specific demands from certain customers, like big buying groups, certain dealer groups, and you will see some specifics. There's an example there from a Audi, Volkswagen type of product, but you will see afterwards that there are plenty of specifics for BMW as well. Okay. Also very important, because we like to provide tools of the trade for every type of customer. We saw that there are plenty of Motul applications for service cars, but we also provide a broader range of viscosities and product profiles for racing as well. Like I said a couple minutes ago, 300V is everything that has to do with racing in the Motul motor oil world. You see three very brief examples there, a 540, a 1550, and a 1060, but there are 12 different 300V products. And the idea behind that is give the customers a viscosity that will match every single tune or prep type of architecture or calibration. So you can go from very, very low viscosity fluids, such as a 0W8, very aggressive, drawn towards qualifying or very, very short stretches of racings, up to a Motul 300V Le Mans 20W60, which is one of the most used products for endurance. The idea behind this is meeting every single tuner need. Now, why are synthetics so good, and what makes the 300V a different type of animal? First and foremost, we need better thermal stability that will provide better oxidative stability. When I mean oxidation, I'm referring to the oil's degradation by high temperature and by certain contaminants. Synthetics are very, very superior in that respect versus the regular minerals. Also, when we're talking about high performance applications, we need to consider the better stability this chemistry has, providing a more stable film, fundamental when it comes to high revving engines, engines that are operating at high temperatures and sometimes with a lot of fuel dilution. You need that viscosity to remain constant. Synthetics will obviously flow better as well at low temperatures, but when it comes to very harsh environments, when it comes to engines running sometimes at 1 degree Celsius in the morning, and along a stretch of race on a rally, they will hit 30, 34 Celsius during the day. You need to have that broader range of temperatures available from your oil. Low volatility, this is a must. Nobody wants to top up continuously their oil levels, but it's also fundamental at racing, and it's become very important nowadays in racing greener. As you know, a lot of categories, a lot of series are racing with biofuels. Biofuels have a tendency to contaminate the oil a lot, and that makes oil consumption go higher. If you can provide a more stable formulation, then teams don't need to be topping up oil every 2 to 3 hours, depending on the type of race. Sebring was a very tough one during the day, and you would see some teams topping up oil continuously as they go along the pit stops. And we were happy to not be suffering of that evil with our product. And overall, you get better lubrication and better friction properties. And that is the reason why 300V matched with a good technology regarding components can give you easily 1.5 to 2 percentage points of extra power and extra torque. Matt, I just seen your question regarding E10. Absolutely, these fluids have been tested with E85, E100, and in some markets with M85, which is 85% methanol. It's not very popular here, but just so you know, all of these 300V products are all biofuel compatible. They will emulsify water and biofuel contamination better than a regular oil, so you don't have to be worrying about that much of the competition of the fuel against the additives. So, I don't know if that that replies to your question. All right, what makes these oils different in a way? Here we're going to have a brief look at the OEM performance standards. And since it's a BMW forum, we're already going to concentrate on those. But I wanted to give you a couple words before we get on to the specific standards. OEM standards, OEM approvals are fundamental for our market because an OEM, a series OEM, will deal with the lubricant as it was an integral part of the engine's engineering. So whether it is that you want to keep your warranty, whether you're serving this car at a dealership or you're doing your services yourself, module fluids will allow you to keep your warranty, which is very important. But for us, it's also important because it allows us to be directly in touch with the OEMs. It allows us recognition of the brand quality by these OEMs, no matter where you are in the world. These guys know that they can rely on having the same module product they see in Europe, here in the United States, in Paraguay or in Bolivia. So it's super important for us to be a part of that OEM approved world and offer the same type of coverage all over the world. Now, how are these OEM standards created? Basically, what they do is they take your basic body of knowledge from the American Petroleum Institute, your basic standards from ACA, which is the Association of European Car Builders, and they will add specific tests on top of that. In the case of BMW, doing some endurance tests with N20 engines and some proprietary tests, just to make a patch of what they see as gaps in the regular standards. So all in all, you can always rely on OEM approved fluids to be superior than your regular API ILSAC type of oil. So always bear that in mind. Of course, if you don't find the right fluid, it's better to have the right oil, at least the right viscosity inside your engine, than running your engine with no oil. But always prefer a formally approved fluid because it will have a quality advantage versus Acme brand lubricants with no approvals. If we go further onto the presentation, we will see there's some examples of different European manufacturers' approvals and American manufacturers. Obviously, Europeans tend to be more complicated on this front. So you will see that every different brand from the European auto industry has an approval system in place. So it's a pretty complex business. But when it comes to domestic, it's a bit more simple. Pretty much the only ones demanding a specific profile and doing specific tests on engine oils are Ford, General Motors, and Mopar. And then the domestic Asian market relies on API and ILSAC standards, so they try and keep it simple. But you have there two different examples of what America and Europe do regarding approvals. In the next slides, you will see, if you don't know them, how BMW deals with their approvals. All of them are called LL, followed by a number and a suffix. LL means long life. The system of approval was born in 1998. Those were the first long life approvals coming out of BMW. And from there on, they identified the different standards with the year the specification was brought to life. Like I said, all of these specifications are based on different European profiles, and that's what you see to the right of your screen. Taking, for example, the BMW LL17 FE+, we're talking about an oil whose sole purpose is increasing fuel economy, and that's the reason why you see the FE, fuel economy, and the plus. You can see there that it's a ACA C5 profile, which means that this is a mid-subs, sorry, there is a bit of a typo there. It's a mid-subs profile with an ultra-low viscosity at high temperature and high shear. And that is the reason why with this type of fluid, you can save a lot of fuel versus a regular 5W40 or 10W40 oil. do not be fooled about thinking, hey, this is low viscosity. This is probably not very safe for my engine. Why should I use their 0W30 or their 0W20 instead of the old 5W40 I was used to using? Well, the manufacturer has made sure that obviously the oil's chemistry, but also the components and the component topography, the surface quality are a complete match, and it's safe to use these low viscosity new oils. We will see that viscosity is going to keep on coming down as the years go by and the emissions regulation gets stricter and stricter. Some of you may have seen already the LL22 profile boasting a 0W12 SAE grade. So do not get scared. Plenty of smarter people than myself have tested this, have tried it, and have validated for being able to launch it into the market. We now know that it's going to get more and more serious about lowering viscosities, and it's all across the board, not only engine oils, but also transmission oils.
Or fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is a brief idea based on the typical LLO1 standard for you to understand how are these folks trying to evaluate these different approvals. And as you can see there, it's a simple spider chart with 7 different properties. Obviously, there's very complicated tests behind this using hardware and some bench tests, but the idea is to qualify the oils based on a 0 to 10 scale on these 7 different properties. They are all targeting engine cleanliness and protection against wear, for sure, but they're also targeting fuel economy and after treatment systems compatibility, meaning DPFs, 2- and 3-way catalytic converters, and in the future, gasoline particulate filters. So what we have there is the LLO, what we had in the previous slide, sorry, was the LLO1 approval. And in this next slide, you will see the LLO4, which was the example for a diesel heritage approval. You can see there that the diesel oil, being a mid-SAPS fluid, has a lot better after treatment compatibility, meaning it carries less metallic ashes, less phosphorus, and less zinc that are completely harmful for the after treatment systems. And also, those LLO4 oils were a lot better at keeping track of the oxidative thickening, meaning the oil will not degrade as fast and will maintain a more homogeneous viscosity along the oil drain interval. They're better at cleaning, so better protection against piston deposits, slightly better protection against sludge, and they already had an advantage in fuel economy versus the old LLO1. And if we would see the newer approvals like the LL17 FE, you would see that that area of protection, it's expanding more and more. So us lubricant blenders, we are always forced to move at the same pace as the OEM to keep track of what they need in terms of protection for their engines and provide that with the oil. That's a little bit of the development process, how the lubricant blender and the original equipment manufacturer work in conjunction to provide the oils they need to meet the performance standards, the expectations of the customer, but at the same time, the emissions and the fuel economy criteria that the government imposes. All right.
Great. Thank you both. So thank you so much, Nico. We're at this point going to turn it over to RRT and chat through some of the questions and topics that come up throughout time here in our wonderful world that we live in with oils. Some of the questions that come up, are what are the different types of oil? How do we apply those to our products and our vehicles? What's the difference between different vehicles? Why can't I just dump the same stuff in all my BMWs or my other cars? Just those technical questions that RRT is so good at answering. So I'm going to turn it over to RRT next, and we'll get going with their presentation on their slides.
Okay, so we know we threw a lot at you guys, a lot of the, the specifics and, many of the grading discussions and things you may not remember. And the idea here is to help you guys have intelligent conversations when you go to talk to your vendor, when you go to pick out your product to use for your car, that you understand the concepts. And you don't have to remember everything. You don't have to pick everything out for yourself if you work with somebody that's there to help you for your specific application. So when we met with Motul, a couple of days ago to discuss this briefing, one of the things that I keyed in on are these spider charts that they have. And the idea that in one of those first slides where it shows that you've got 100% of a volume of oil, but it's not all just base oil. It does many different things. And so we choose partners like Motul that know how to put in their additive package and provide a product that meets the needs of what we're looking for individual applications. So the reason why we're sitting out here in our service shop and dealing with the Echo is to show that we work on a multitude of different cars. And the folks here represent James, business owner, lead technician for years and lead sales, and Billy, who is our lead performance racing side, which is over on our other side of the shop. We're sitting here in our service and maintenance side of the building. So the idea here is that your needs for your specific car, we have quite a lot of products with Motul. We've been working with them for 15 plus years now. Yeah. So it's been a absolutely great partnership. We've found a lot of success with using different blends, going to 300D, which is what we were talking about on mute. Finding opportunities to use that on street and track cars, not just race cars. We've had 300V in my S54 M3 and my S65 M3, as well as their street synthetic. And again, going back to the spider charts, tells you the pros and cons of what you might be selecting. Their additive package, and you were mentioning the zinc content, protecting catalytic converters, versus, if you've got track days during the hot summer, maybe switching over to 300V for a while. Kelsey has been working very closely with Motul on the oil analysis front to understand when it's time to change your oil, what intervals work for you, and not just switching out something that is expensive on the product side and expensive, even if you're doing it yourself, it's your time and effort away from doing fun things to put oil in your car, and figuring out with not just anecdotal evidence, but actual data points of what is working for your car. The other two parts of this three-part series are going to be using, I think in the next slide, if you want to move forward. So we picked four different engines to try to hit the full spectrum of our use cases here. So we're looking at a naturally aspirated V8, a turbocharged engine, which are being tracked more and more, have extremely high heat demands. That's one of the really big benefits we've seen of Motul over the years, is dropping the temperature on the turbocharged track cars significantly. Mm-hmm. We've seen as much as like 15 Fahrenheit. Yeah. So bringing you from like the 250, 260 range to like, from limp mode to not limp mode. Yeah, couldn't be said better, right? Yeah, to ending your track session early, to keeping an eye on things, but being able to stay out for the whole session. And then talking about the street and commuter car, we can't ignore that. I mean, the vast majority of what we do here is working on people's commuter cars, and that's where we spend our miles, out there in the commuter cars. And we want those to last as long as possible. and not be replacing components on them. We want to be focusing on the maintenance, not the service and repair function of those. And lastly, the tow vehicles. A lot of people use those not just to get to the track, but in daily use. So we'll be looking at a high output diesel on that tow vehicle. So respecting the time, Kelsey, did you want to jump back in on your end? I'm just checking chat. I don't see, we've just had the one question that came through there. So we've
Yeah,
got.
I think, you know, one question that I know comes up a lot is, you know, if Motul, you know, if the factory supplied oil that comes from a manufacturer, so we pick it up from the dealership, you know, brand new 2022, 2023. You know, can you guys talk a little bit about like how Motul, you know, isn't on that list, or how someone like Castor Oil would be there, or Mobil One, that kind of thing? I think that's a question a lot of us have in there. And then another one is this lifetime fill idea that's been coming up. You know, kind of talk through that as well. You know, what does that mean in service intervals and those kind of things? It'd be great to kind of give some people some insight into the approach for that.
Yeah, so you know, I have personally talked to the dealer on my personal cars, and warranty purposes, as long as you have records from a reputable shop and are showing that you're using oils that meet the standards that are the OEM standards, that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the question. Which oil are these cars using?
I think that was for the oil program.
Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of missed that these cars right now are not using Motul products. So we are going to do an oil pull, an oil change on these, run some data on them, and then we're going to run them again post Motul oil change and see what kind of information we can find there. We do have a little bit of a different oil analysis approach we'll be sharing with you guys later. So I'd like to get some good information from that when we do run that analysis. Does anybody have any other direct questions while we have Motul on the line here? They're a good resource. It's not always that, you know, we have the provider here that works on the cars and the vendor here at the same time, or not the vendor, but the actual producer. So on the gear oil, we're going to be looking at that later on in the year. So we're looking at things that are, you know, because there is so much complexity and questions on the motor oil itself, we're separating out the other lubricants. So as far as gear and brake fluid, we're going to have a session with Motul on that to talk specifically, because brake fluid is definitely not straightforward as well. There are pros and cons for sure on the brake fluid. Yeah. And you need to know what you're getting into on the brake fluid. So yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Yeah. Yeah. So
Very blue.
yeah. So without getting into that, that's going to have its own session. So Nicholas, can you answer that question there? If you want to come off mute.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No problems at mixing oil Y with oil Z or with oil X. Just make sure that both oils have at least the same API, ACEA, or BMW standard to avoid any mixes, to avoid contaminating one with the other. But any reputable oil for a car shouldn't have any issues mixing them up. Chris, great question. Love that thing. Additives. An interesting thing about formulating oil is that you need to provide balance between the different additives. It's like an orchestra. The guy playing the trumpet can play above the guy playing the piano or the tuba, whatever. Some additives tend to fight against others. They're all polar. They're all trying to get a little bit of that surface. And if you overdo it with some of them, you're gonna keep some guys with no place or no room to fit in. So you want to be careful about adding extra stuff, especially phos and zinc in modern vehicles and their after treatment systems.
And just to add off of what Nico was saying, I think even the manuals from BMW strictly indicate do not add additional additives to the oil.
Mm.
I mean, we
Yeah,
provide 300 V directly to the race teams. It's the same exact oil, there's nothing different about it. And as far as we're concerned, they don't add any additional additives to the oil as well.
Yeah, you fill your sump 100%, right? And you got to think in the terms of just your sump, you've got what, 102% in there? And it's not just that, it's the oil that is flowing over your bearing surface or through, you know, as Nicholas talked about, it's the hydraulic needs with valve timing and everything. Now you're talking about diluting from what they have carefully engineered that actually goes over the surfaces. So to say that they're fighting against each other is a perfect analogy. So that's a good way to really think about it, is that it's not just additive for what's in your sump, it's what's flowing across what it is you're either trying to cool, lubricate, or hydraulically actuate, right? So all right, so if people are looking at the chats, we already got some answers in here that
Yeah, there
Nicholas-
was a question that popped up from James Austin. He says, is E91 with an N52 engine officially required LL01? He said he assumes LL01FE is a suitable substitution. And he was asking about the newer LLXX versions. So Nico,
Yeah.
I want to touch on that.
I started replying that one, so thanks, James, for the question. LLO1 FE is, yes, backwards compatible with LLO1. LLO4 was never made compatible with gasoline engines in the United States and pretty much all of the Americas, only for diesels, not for gasoline. The idea behind that was that the gasoline on this neck of the woods will not be that good for the LLO4 formula. And some of the newer LL products, especially the low viscosity ones, are not backwards compatible with those engines. So you better stick to LLO1 FE, which is perfectly compatible with LLO1. Do not go for the lower viscosity fluids, just in case.
Yeah, I'd add one caveat is some engines we see that they're secondhand, third-hand cars. You don't know what the previous owners have used or what their intervals were. So you might see a significant amount of extra wear in those engines. You can go with the thinner 030 LL01 FE, but if you have things like cam timing faults and other things, that's the hydraulic function of the viscosity of the oil, where that's not functioning properly. If you bump back up to the LL01 5W40, that usually fixes that problem, because we've seen a number of higher mileage engines where there's enough wear and an unknown history to the point where you kind of need the thicker oil. But typically we see cars with up to 200,000-300,000 miles, very, very clean inside. My own 335 has 164,000 miles and is super clean with very little wear, because I've been in it doing bearings and lifters and other things that didn't need it. So I was quite surprised.
running high boost and meth injection.
Yeah, and methanol injection and high boost and track days.
Yep.
And
With,
I don't
with Motul.
Yeah, and I go through rear tires very quickly. All right.
Does anyone have any questions about, one thing we kind of talk about is service schedules, and, if someone's coming up for, with their audience here, autocross or track day, with HPDE, what should they do? Should they kind of go run the event with what they have in and think about it later? Or is it better to kind of get your fluids done ahead of the event at the beginning of the season?
Right. So things like, obviously, as a shop, race season's upon us. You want to get in ahead of time. Your tech inspections, you need maintenance and service beforehand. 2-3 weeks out for just about anywhere. Other people are reporting to me that other shops they call are 3-4 weeks out as well. But the main thing is, yes, use good stuff, generally speaking, and the car should be ready to go. Don't save it all for the very end, and don't think you need to do everything all at once before your first track day. It all depends on how well you've maintained the car in the past. So. One other note is excessive oil changing. We do see a number of customers who ask about 3,000 and 5,000 mile oil changes. That would only be under very, very severe duty. I would say if you do know you're under a severe duty use, you definitely want to do oil analysis much more often. But for the vast majority of our clients and customers, no, 5,000 miles is probably a little too often. You can probably go the 8,000 to 9,000 mile recommended range. Obviously, everyone uses their car differently, but the modern synthetics, especially Motul, very, very low burn off rate. So we do not have customers needing to buy extra quarts of oil to top off between oil changes. That's a very rare situation for us. Even over the past many, many years with these known M engines that had higher oil consumption, people do notice less oil consumption and fewer problems. But
that was the volatility that Nicholas was talking about.
Volatility is a big thing for also reducing intake valve carbon deposits. So the more the oil burns off in the engine and vaporizes, gets sucked into the crankcase ventilation system, ends up on the back of the intake valve and in the intake manifold. And on a direct injection engine, those don't get washed down. So you pull the intake manifold off of a car that uses XYZ brand oil for a number of years and you see heavy deposits. You pull the intake manifold off of a different car that's been using the Motul and the deposits are severely reduced. And like I said, my 335, I've owned it for 120,000 miles now. The first time I did the carbon cleaning was the worst I'd ever seen. And I did a few after that and I stopped doing it because there's so little deposit. It wasn't worth my time to clean it off anymore. So still anecdotal, but
Good data points.
Significant difference, massive difference.
Hey, Kelsey, did we want to put it back to the club to close up on their end and we could?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Gordon, if you want to say something, and if we have got some other chairs here as well, I believe. I just put slide on the screen. It's got the next events coming up between HPDE and Autocross, which are two programs that RRT is a great advocate and supporter of. So thank you for all your fine work, gentlemen of RRT.
One quick question. What does the Motul oil analysis show and how does that work?
We're going to dive into that more in chapter 2, so to speak.
I have to wait.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just very top level, and you could jump in if you want. But what we're going to be looking at is taking the 4 samples from the cars, and those cars all currently are not running Motul products, and then we're going to have Motul go into them. And so we need some time essentially for people to drive that car, after the service gets done on it. So that's why we're doing this later in the fall, the analysis. And the goal of that really is to kind of have everybody see that this isn't a competition between brands necessarily. It's more looking at how your engine's running and how the product that you're using is doing well. And if you have those spider graphics that we had in the presentation, how the different products are meeting those different things that the lubricant's trying to assist with or prevent in that case. So a little bit of a not so direct answer for you, Gordon, but a big part of it really is that we're trying to provide information, education to people, in terms of what their vehicles are using. It is something that people do at a lot of the service shops. RRT typically has been using Blackstone, which is another great oil program to get analysis and see how your engines and your different parts are running. For this in particular, we're very grateful for the sponsorship and support this with Motul. And their analysis program looks at this from a little bit more in-depth aspect as well. So it's exciting because you get to see all sorts of crazy stuff that comes from the fluid and the analysis that comes out of it. I've always been pleasantly surprised by what we learn. So I think it's something that people will really enjoy. And again, in that next part of this that we're going to do in the late fall, the early winter, we'll kind of dive into what makes each of these vehicles different with their motors. And the stresses and strains and things that car went under as well. So for the members that are participating in this, it's going to be really fun. They're going to have to answer little quizzes and questions of what they've been doing with the car since the product got switched out. But I'm excited. I think hopefully the other nerds on here will be excited to really get a chance to see how these different products apply and what the differences are once you look at it from a data and a deep level.
Well, I want to thank Nicholas from Motul taking the time. Very informative, really great information on the oil. Todd Bascato, our camera guy, thank you for being the film guy. And Matt RRT, Great job, and you have a great shop there, so thank you for putting this together. And Kelsey, our host, Lip Shift, as always, you're involved in so much of our chapter. Thank you so much. Looking towards the future for guys who don't want to get a red light flashing your rearview mirror and hate tickets. Our next driving school is May 19, 2021, up at Summit Point on the Shenandoah. And September on the main is September 29, 30, October 1st. So mark your calendars for Summit Point. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. We love having the opportunity of talking a little bit more about the brand and our products. So looking forward for the next ones.
Thank you.
Great, and I'll just put it out there as well. People have questions ongoing, feel free to shoot them over to Gordon or any of your program directors, and we can always get them over to our friends at Motul and get you some answers as well, and our friends at RRT too. Their phone number is easy to find on Google, so if you have a question, give them a ring. They're always happy to answer and always very helpful.
And look how clean Matt's shop is. That's very impressive. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Get in.
Great. All right, 7:29. I'm proud of us. Go team. This is great. We'll send this out also to all the email, the presentation and everything as well. We'll send that out to everybody by email as well. And then Motul also did put together a link for the group. So we'll include that. That can take you to their online shop, motul.com, or you can always stop by RRT and pick up product as well. They do counter sales of those products. So we'll definitely get the slides out to everybody, and we'll make sure everyone has lots of information, and anything else that you need, just let us know. And then our second round of this, which will be in the summer, that's going to be on transmissions, diffs, and brakes. So another exciting delve into products and kind of what they mean and why they're important, those kind of things as well. So we'll make sure that everyone on here, plus the rest of the chapter, gets the date announcement and the sign up for them as well. But we plan to do that in the summer and fill up some of your beach days with some learning.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for attending.
Thank
you. Appreciate it.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, I'm going to give Paul the notice to close down the meeting.
I was going to wait for that people to drop off, but
Yeah, I just texted Paul to go ahead and
okay.
officially shut it down.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Kelsey. Appreciate it.
oh, you're so welcome. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to have more people get to do nerd stuff. So I love it. All right, great. I will chat with you guys soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kelsey.
Okay. All right, but I'll get you Indeed all this stuff to send out.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.